Home Folks, Visit 12, featuring Ann and L.D. Moser. Made possible in part by Campbell's Auto Sales, 1100 East Main Street in Melbourne. For your next pre-owned ride, bad boy mower, ATV, trailer, or maybe a laser wash car wash, it's Campbell's Auto Sales. This is Home Folks. I'm Ken Loggins, your host. It's always a pleasure, a privilege, actually, for me to get to catch up with some folks that I think the world of. I know you do as well. So we hope you enjoy this as much as we enjoy putting it together for you. Quick reminder, while you're here at the YouTube channel, please subscribe. It's absolutely free to do so. And once you subscribe, you'll get a notification whenever we premiere a new Home Folks visit. So you'll always be able to catch up with the latest Home Folks visits that we have available if you are a subscriber. Also, if you're on Facebook, follow us there as well. Ken Loggins Online on Facebook. That's Ken Loggins Online on Facebook. I always look forward to doing combo interviews, specifically with couples. Ann and L.D. Moser today on this edition of Home Folks. Thank you both so much for taking the time to be with us. It's a pleasure to visit with you and catch up. Appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. We're honored to get it done.
How's everything going? You feeling good?
Yeah.
Like I said, I love doing these visits with couples because it's kind of fascinating. We go back in time and maybe you have a recollection of how something happened. Maybe you have a slightly different recollection of how it happened. So it's always neat to get both sides of the story, if you will, when we talk about some of our memories from years gone by. And we're going to start with you. Let's start from the very beginning. When were you born? Where were you born?
I was born in 1943 in Gainesville, Texas.
Gainesville, Texas. Now, see, I've learned something already. I'd always assumed you were probably born in Izard County or somewhere thereabouts, but Gainesville, Texas.
Daddy was in the service.
That's the reason why, wasn't it?
That's where I was born. Mm-hmm.
And, of course, just in case somebody might not realize it, let's name check your mom and dad.
Okay, it's Fred and Elsie Blankenship.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad and Mother were both born and raised here in Izard County.
So he was in Gainesville for his time in the military.
Mm-hmm, yes. Okay.
Do you remember that much about your grandparents on either side?
Yeah. Granny and Grandpa Blankenship had a farm. Mm-hmm. The thing I remember most about that is that Granny Blankenship could make the best fried apple pies you ever ate. Now, and their house was one of those dog trot houses. Mm-hmm. And one of my first memories is my grandmother Rodman lived with them. That was Granny Blankenship's mother. Mm-hmm. And she'd had a stroke. I guess I remember this because it's something that you just don't normally see. But she would churn butter while we were there, and she'd put the head of the jar in her hand that was stroke, and then she'd sit there and do the other one and churn that butter.
Okay.
So that was a neat memory that I've got of them. Granny and Papa Webb had a store at Wideman, and Jerry and I would go up there every summer and spend the summer with them, and just lots of good memories from them. Papa was a prankster, and he would take us out to the creek, and he would get rocks and go behind us and put them together and make them sound like something was after us. And he had the biggest time doing that. So we enjoyed our grandparents a lot.
It's such a blessing as a youngster when you have your grandparents in your life. It is such fun when you're younger, and unfortunately we kind of take it for granted sometimes. We don't realize it till they're gone. But yes, that's truly a blessing indeed. You mentioned Jerry. Talk about your sibling.
He's 3 years younger than I am, and loves to tell everybody that I'm his older sister.
Not Jerry. No, he wouldn't do that.
That would be him. We of course, we're close as siblings, I would say. And our thing now as adults is every Tuesday he comes and picks me up with Rose at 8 o'clock and we go to McDonald's at Batesville and have breakfast.
Hey,
So that's our weekly thing of being together.
you need something like that to catch up and talk about old times and talk about what you're up to these days. Now, what branch of the military was Fred in?
He was in the Army.
In the Army, okay. And he was stationed in Gainesville, Texas when you were born.
Yes.
How long would it be before the family would find their way back to Izard County?
You know, I really don't know for sure. I know I started the second grade in Melbourne.
Okay.
And prior to that, Daddy went to pharmacy school. So we were there for a while.
Okay.
And then we moved to Melbourne. We've been here ever since.
Thank you so much, Ann. We're going to run the same questions by L.D. coming up in just a second. But right now, I want to remind you, Home Folks is presented in part by Cooper's Hawk and the Hawk's Nest Grill in Melbourne, ranked number 1 in the state for good reason, ranked number 1 for 3 years straight. Come out and play, come out and stay at Cooper's Hawk and the Hawk's Nest Grill. Also, Future Fuel Chemical Company in Batesville, leading the way when it comes to the manufacture of specialty chemicals and biofuels, and Izard County Abstract, with an office full of names you know and trust: Miller, Rush, Caraway, Morris, Watson, and more, serving you since 1954. Could not make this happen without our Home Folks partners, and we certainly appreciate it very much. LD, going to kind of cover the same ground with you. Where does your story start? When were you born? Where were you born?
I was born on October the 14th, 1941. In a little community north of Melbourne called Knob Creek.
Knob Creek, yes.
It really was Red Hill, where it was born. We lived in a little 3-4 room house. Had a wonderful time growing up. We was country folks. Yeah.
Remind us your parents' names again.
Orville Moser and Vida Moser.
Okay.
My grandfather on my Rush side was a reverend. He was a preacher. We used to listen to him preach. Red Hill had a schoolhouse, and they used it as a church house, too. I didn't start the school at Red Hill, but started school in Melbourne. They closed the rural schools down about that time, and I started school in Melbourne. My grandparents on the Moser side was farmers. They Lincoln Moser. He was a farmer, and we used to go out to his place and pick cotton.
Okay.
Yeah, we done a lot of cotton picking back in those days. We picked nearly every field around here in Melbourne's been picked cotton in. Before the boll weevils hit, they had all the cotton was real good. We had a lot of fun in them cotton fields.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah. And Mom had 2 brothers and 1 sister that lived right by us.
Okay.
We'd walk up and visit with the neighbors every once in a while. Had lots of fun with that. Yeah. We used to visit with Dale Reynolds, his family. It was just a fun time growing up in our time. It's hard times. You know, while we grew on the farm, we grew everything we eat. We'd go to town and buy flour and pinto beans and meal and stuff like that. And that's about all we could buy in town. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and they would go down in the bottoms and pick cotton.
Yeah.
When our cotton got gone, they would go down the bottom, and they could make some good money down there. They'd have a little old shack they'd live into, and they would in there pick cotton.
If you don't mind, name your brothers and sisters for us.
My brother was Dallas Moser, Carol Jean Moser, Ann L.D, and Almeda Gaston. Yeah.
Sounds like there was a lot happening around Red Hill, around where you were raised. It was always busy, wasn't it? If you weren't working, you were playing.
I remember going to church in this little, and you get there a little early. We had a truck that we could drive down there. My dad had a big truck that he used in his business. And we'd drive down there, and you could just see people coming down the cow paths through the woods and across the creeks and stuff, coming to church. Most people walked to church down there. Mom had a brother that lived, I'd say it's 4 or 5 miles across the hill, and they'd come across there to preaching. Yeah. We didn't have no power in that little community, the church that we went to. So everybody would take a Aladdin lamp or a kerosene lamp, and they had little brackets to set up on the wall, and they'd bring 5 or 6 of those lamps, and they'd light the church up that way.
We're going to be right back. We're going to get into the schooling years for both Ann and L.D. on the way for you shortly. You're listening to Home Folks. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back in just a moment. Home Folks, Visit 12, featuring Ann and L.D. Moser. Brought to you in part by RE/MAX Edge Realty in Melbourne, 1188 East Main Street, helping buyers and sellers achieve their dreams. Your hometown agents, RE/MAX Edge Realty in Melbourne. Call 870-916-2008. That's 870-916-2008. Home Folks also brought your way in part by Ozarka College, with campus locations in Melbourne, Mountain View, and Ash Flat, and offering online courses as well. Check them out online at ozarka.edu. Ozarka College, changing lives and communities since 1975. This is Home Folks. I'm Ken Loggins. Thank you so much for being here. We're enjoying a visit right now with Ann and L.D. Moser, longtime Izard County residents. I've known them all my life and think the world of them. I know a lot of you do as well. We're just getting started. Let's talk about the elementary, high school years. Ann, I'll start with you. You mentioned a while ago, it was about the second grade, as far as you can recall, when you would have a recollection of starting school in Melbourne. Some of the teachers, some of the subjects, some of the classmates that you remember from your elementary school years.
We had good times, and of course it's so much different the way school's taught now and everything, but some of it I think was better when we were actually going than it is now. But our classmates, actually the ones that I start remembering is probably maybe in the 5th or 6th grade.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And we had, of course, every class had little cliques. Mm-hmm. And I had a little clique too, and it was Katie Hall Hayes, Madeline Kimmel, Emma Jean Cooper, Diane Davidson, and Paula Williams.
Okay.
So we all just kind of went through high school together, and we were a close-knit class, actually. Some classes are and some are not, and ours was pretty close-knit. I met LD when we were in the end of the 11th, going to go into the 12th grade.
Okay.
And we met on a hayride, actually.
Interesting. Okay.
He was driving the bus for Herman Dover. Herman was our youth leader. And we were going to go to Batesville. And that's where I met him. And then we started to date. And of course, then we got married and had our children. So in between, there was just lots of good times,
At what point did your dad open up the pharmacy? About what time frame was that?
When we came here, Dad opened the pharmacy. Jerry bought it after he got out of college. So Dad was here, I don't know, 60 years maybe. I forgot how many years he had it. Mother dipped ice cream, and they sold ice cream and that kind of stuff. Dad's little pharmacy thing was in the back, and it was just kind of, right now would be called a hole in the wall. And then Dr. Harris had his little shop set up in the back. Do you remember Ransom McCollum's Cafe by any
Yes.
chance? We were right beside Ransom McCollum's Cafe. That's where where we were.
LD, I want to ask you a little bit about your elementary school years, teachers that come to mind, subjects that maybe you liked, didn't like, your circle of friends, who you ran with more often than not.
Of course, like I say, we moved to town. We sold the farm and moved to town, and I started school in the 1st grade. We lived up on the north side of the town, and we'd walk downtown and visit with everybody. I guess my days in Melbourne, Arkansas, put a lot of good in my life. I'd walk downtown and visit with those old people. It was just a fun time. And school time, well, of course, Fuzzy Rush, Franklin, and Burton Lamb, and there was Euless Vest, Charlie Lamb. That was some of my classmates back then. And my kind of incline didn't play basketball, but we played baseball.
Yeah. Okay.
Baseball was a big part of my life and growing up. We had got us a little community team and go to different towns around and play. But, of course, Miss Burgess was my first grade teacher. Then Leela Davis was the second grade teacher. And Isaac Frizzell.
Okay.
He was a good teacher. We just loved the far out of him. He was our math teacher, and I wasn't very good at school. But when I got to him, we took a liking to each other, and he taught business math, and I really loved him about that. And Howard Jacobs was my agri teacher. Of course, Miss Vera Jacobs taught English. I just had some good folks in my life.
Sure enough. You mentioned your love for baseball.
Yeah.
Did you have heroes either on major league teams or players here locally that you looked up to and wanted to emulate?
The Brooklyn Dodgers was my favorite team in baseball. We'd listen to them on the radio, and Jackie Robinson, he started playing to the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I remember sitting out in the car and listening to the baseball games on the car radio. I've always been a Dodger fan, and I'm still a Dodger fan.
Still a Dodgers fan.
Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying this visit as much as we are. We want to take a brief moment and mention the people that make these visits possible. Our home folks partners, Triple M Discount, Miller Poultry and Cattle, your go-to for silk flowers, cemetery arrangements, hardware, tools, home decor, fresh eggs, and locally raised beef, located at 2412 East Main in Melbourne. I'm a little surprised because Melbourne is such a small community. I'm a little surprised that Ann and L.D., you didn't cross paths until later on in your high school years, because it seemed like everybody knew just about everybody. You were both, I guess, almost graduation.
We dated our 12th grade.
Well, we knew each other before then, but we just didn't
really connect.
It didn't cling. And finally, well, like she said, I was driving a hayride truck. And First Baptist Church, Hugh Cooper and Herman Dover, we went on this hayride to Batesville. It's a dam down there, and had a little picnic outside. And that's how I guess we finally clicked.
Okay.
And, of course, she's one of my big reasons, I guess, that I become a Christian. She was big in the church, and I was proud of that.
Yeah. Longtime members of Melbourne First Baptist Church. As long as I was in church, I can always remember Ann and L.D. and their family going there as well. What class did you graduate in? What year, Ann?
1961.
And did you graduate same year?
Same year.
61.
Yeah.
Okay. You've already mentioned some of your classmates.
Yeah.
When you get to graduation time, how did the proposal happen? When did it happen? Let's hear recollections of that.
I got to tell about the proposal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We lived in the little house behind the drugstore at the time. And he came in, and we were supposed to study that night. And he laid his car keys down on the table in front of me. And he'd put my ring on that. And he kind of, did it like that, so I'd see him.
Nicely done, LD.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And, of course, I saw him and got excited, and he took them off the key ring, and they fit. And I found out later that him and his daddy, Orville Moser, had gone to Batesville and bought this set of rings for me.
Okay. So how did Mom and Dad feel about LD, Fred and Elsie? How did that go over?
At the time, they really wanted me to go to college.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I just wasn't too much interested in doing that. So when it first started, they were a little bit, it wasn't that they didn't like him. They had just wanted me to go to college.
Yeah, a concern about life in general and career and all that thing, as opposed to starting a family right off the bat. LD, you popped the question. Where does the marriage take place? When does it take place?
Well, of course, I asked her to marry me, and she said she would. And we got married in August.
August the 3rd.
3rd of August. And it took place in the Melbourne First Baptist Church.
Okay.
Hugh Cooper married us. We went on a honeymoon to Rockaway Beach.
Okay.
A little community, a little town up in Moser. And from there, our life just got better, you know.
Yeah,
we just
exactly. Think the world of your family and all your kids. And like I said, went to church with all of you for so many years. And we're going to talk about some of those memories of Melbourne First Baptist Church. We're going to talk about where life took you after you got married, because you have to support a young family. So we'll talk about careers, all of that coming up with this very special visit here on Home Folks with Ann and L.D. Moser. We're back in just a moment. Stay here. Home Folk, made possible in part by Izard County Heating and Cooling, your Heil Elite dealer. Call 870-291-0576. Your local HVAC repair experts, Izard County Heating and Cooling. Also, thanks to Bill Davis Trucking, specializing in state-of-the-art temperature control, secure transport. 810 Newport Road in Batesville, and everywhere online at BillDavisTrucking.com. Home Folks also made possible in part by Sanders Lee Wyatt Investments, offering fast cash for your land, home, property, personal property, and estates. Call Sanders Lee at 870-291-7110. That's 870-291-7110. We're visiting with Ann and L.D. Moser on this very special edition of Home Folks. I'm Ken Loggins. We just left off. You just got married, August of 61. Time to get to work. It's time to support a family, raise a family. So, L.D., what did you have in mind for making a living after y'all got married?
Well, here's what the deal was. My dad was a carpenter. Of course, back then, if you could take off at school in the afternoons. And so I'd take off at dinner when I was in 11th grade and help my dad carpenter work. So my career started pretty early as a carpenter.
Yeah.
I've worked on nearly every house in town, done some kind of fixing to it.
Yeah.
We built lots of homes. Me and my father had a good relationship in the carpenter business.
You always had a passion for, in your entire family, had a passion for horses and for hunting. That started as a youngster?
It started as a youngster. I'll tell you what the deal was. This is back in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
My dad had a sorghum molasses mill. And we'd make cane. He'd make sorghum for all the farmers around there. They'd bring their cane to the mill, and he would cook that sorghum and make that cane and make sorghum out of it. One morning he got up, he said, well, Commie's coming today. And she's talking about Mr. Commie Blankenship. And of course, just out on the outside, you could hear them little mules' feet petting on the ground, hauling that sorghum up there. And Mr. Commie, Dad was making his sorghum, and I sat down and talked to Mr. Commie. And of course, he brought up the fact that he had a dog that had some puppies. And he said, I'm going to give you one of these pups. And that's when my hunting started. I wasn't 5 or 6, about 5 years old, and he gave me a pup. And I grew up with that old dog. We started hunting, and that was my first dog, but I've done all kinds of hunting, bird dogs, foxhounds, coon dogs. I've done it all. Yeah. Had a lot of good dogs. We still got... I guess we've got 9 bird dogs left out at the house now that we use. My grandson, I've run a shooting reserve for Jerry Blankenship, called Feathers and Gunpowder, and he wanted to quit, so I just brought him out, and we run that for several years. Now we're doing one at Lafferty, Arkansas. We got a quail, pheasant, and chucker game bird shooting resort down there. And my grandson still does that. Tad Hickerson, he still runs that thing for him.
People come from all around.
All
to do
over.
That.
They
it's
just
amazing.
We have people from out of state, everywhere else come to hunt with us. It's been a good deal. I loved it when I could. I just loved meeting the people and seeing those bird dogs work. And
when I think of your family, I think of horse shows and the horse
yes,
business.
We did.
Where did that all start?
Well, of course, I had a horse ever since I was little bitty.
Yeah.
I remember the first one riding him from the field when we plowed cotton, riding him home with the harness on. And it just went from there. My love for horses did. And, of course, when we got our kids got big enough, we decided we'd go to horse showing with them. And bought a Palomino mare that was named Sunshine Money. And they all rode her, and we had a big time with it. But that was probably the best part of our lives. Yeah. It was a family-oriented deal, and you could spend lots of time with your family that way. And
well, it's like you say, it's an opportunity to do something together.
Do stuff together.
You know where your kids are.
That's right.
And they're getting recognition, and that makes you proud as well. So,
well, there ain't no telling how many dollars I spent horse showing, but I wouldn't take it back. If you could bring it and let it in this table right here, I wouldn't take it back today.
Wouldn't trade it for anything.
Too many memories involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Miss Ann, Rebecca would come along in around 1962. As far as right after marriage, what did you start doing as far as work? What career did you decide on?
I had several before I landed at the senior center. And I started out working for the judge, and the senior center was in the basement of the drugstore. It was a good time.
Yeah.
But then we kind of decided that we'd like to do something else, and I had help and wrote a grant and got the money to build the senior center that's at Brockwell. That was quite an experience because a lot of people did not want me to put it at Brockwell, and maybe in hindsight that might not have been the best location, but that's in the past and it's there now.
It's there,
yeah. So we built that senior center there, and I spent the next 30 years, I guess, there.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed it until the money started. They started cutting the money, and they wanted you to do everything you were doing with a lot less money.
Sure.
So when I turned 65, I just decided to retire. And retired and actually went home and took care of Mom and Daddy.
Yeah. It's a blessing to be able to do that. That's for sure. And thank you for your years of service at the Senior Center. I know the program would not be what it is today if it wasn't for the sweat equity that Ann Moser put into it. That's for sure. We're going to talk about life at Melbourne First Baptist Church. We've got a lot more ground to cover with the Mosers, okay? But right now I want to remind you that Home Folks is brought your way in part by Townsend Spice and Supply, 725 East Main in Melbourne, specializing in custom spice blends, herbs, and seasonings, spicing things up since 1978. Also, thanks to our friends at Sharp County Outdoors, 587 Highway 62 West in Ash Flat, your go-to for sales and service of used tractors, equipment, ATVs, and UTVs. Brand new building on the premises. Check it out when you can. 587 Highway 62 West between Ash Flat and Salem for Sharp County Outdoors. Visiting with Ann and L.D. Moser on this very special edition of Home Folks. Let's talk a bit about Melbourne First Baptist Church. A lot of great memories there. When you think of the old church location where the Miller's Hardware parking lot is now, some memories that pop into your head, and it can be preachers, it can be individuals, whatever. What pops into your head, Ann?
Well, I was saved in that church. It was during a revival. The neat thing about that is that Daddy was a Methodist, and when the Lord led me to be a Christian, Dad came up and joined the Baptist Church, and to make the family all complete there. So that was a neat thing. We had a good, I'm just going to say, a good time in that church. Hugh Cooper was one of the pastors, and anybody that's ever heard Hugh Cooper preach knows that you got a blessing every time he was there. The youth group that I mentioned with Herman was a big part of our socialization, and our group of kids that went to there, we just all had a good time together. So I grew up in that church, and then of course after they built the new one, we moved on up there. My children were actually baptized in the first church, not the second one. So both churches hold a lot of memories for us.
They do. LD, what do you think of?
Well, I tell you what, I've got a little funny deal about it. Of course, my dad was a carpenter, and I was helping him, and they decided they need to put a new roof on that Baptist church. And we was up there one morning putting shingles on that church, and saw Brother Hugh Cooper come walking across going to the post office. And he decided he'd climb up that ladder on the south side of that church, and it was probably 20 foot tall. And he climbed up the top lamb of that church and just sat there and visit for about 15, 20 minutes and watch what it... And he just kept sitting there. Finally, he said, boys, he said, y'all going to have to help me. I said, what do you mean, Hugh? He said, I can't get down. He said, I'm froze here. And so on the north side of that church, it wasn't very high, probably 10 foot. So I went around there and jumped off on the ground and come up behind Hugh and helped him get down that ladder. That was one of the finest memories I had of the First Baptist.
Glad y'all were there when you were.
Yeah.
Help out Hugh.
Yeah. Yeah, but Hugh had come up there. He was going to watch us put shingles on for a while, and he got up there and got stuck. He couldn't do. And
I didn't know that.
Well, we're all learning something new, I guess.
Yeah.
Fantastic memories there of a fun time. If I'm not mistaken, was Fred not a deacon for a long time there at Melbourne First Baptist?
Until he died.
That's right. I always remember that.
Yeah.
I always remember where your mom and dad would sit there in church.
Yep.
And I always remember Fred's signature. If there came a point in the service where people would say amen or something, he would say good.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. You remember that?
Sure did. Yeah, he did.
And you always knew
Yes,
that was
he did.
Fred. That was
Yeah.
his signature.
Yeah.
Think the world of him. And I know my family did too. We did business with Blankenship Pharmacy for so many years with your dad, then with Jerry. So many personalities when you would walk into that shop, whether it was Jack or whoever, as a youngster, it was a treat for me to get to go along with Dad or Mom. It was never, ever boring.
When they brought the Rexall in with the Ben Franklin in with it,
Yeah, that's right.
they were the first pharmacy in the state of Arkansas to do that.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, and so they had the Ben Franklin side on one side, and then the drugs and the pharmacy stuff on the other side.
Great memories in that building that I guess now houses some county offices and things like that there on the east side of the square in Melbourne. We're chatting with Ann and L.D. Moser. We have another segment coming up that's on the way as we continue this very special visit. It's Home Folks. Stay with us. More in just a moment. Coming up, more conversation with Home Folks Ann and L.D. Moser. Right now, a quick reminder, Home Folks brought your way in part by Southern Tire Mart, 1100 North St. Louis Street in Batesville. Your go-to for passenger tires, commercial truck tires, construction equipment tires, and more. They keep America rolling at Southern Tire Mart. Home Folks also made possible in part by White River Health. In 2026, celebrating 50 years since the opening of White River Medical Center in Batesville. And don't forget, clinic locations all throughout the region. Get details online at whiteriverhealth.org. That's whiteriverhealth.org. White River Health, caring beyond healthcare. This is Home Folks. I'm Ken Loggins. Our very special guest, Ann and L.D. Moser, longtime pillars of the Melbourne, Izard County community. And we've been talking a lot about some of our favorite memories of Melbourne, of Melbourne First Baptist Church. I wanted to ask L.D. specifically because on some of these visits, I get a chance to kind of clarify my own memory. And L.D. is going to help me out here. I remember Dad taking me, and this was probably late 70s, he'd take me 2 or 3 times out Possum Trot Road for what they call field trials.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. It would happen on a Saturday. It was an event. What was a field trial all about back in the day?
Well, of course, if you grew up in Izard County, you grew up in paradise as far as quail hunting goes.
Sure. Because
there was more quail in Izard County than any other place in Arkansas. They had been farming, and quail likes farm ground. They need some open ground. But this field trial, of course, everybody wants a brag dog. And that's really what field trials about, bringing your best dog to the field. And they'd put out those birds, and they had a little course they'd run, and who found the most birds, and point back and retrieve scores. Mm-hmm. And I've won several of them. That's what it was about.
There was concession stands out there, and it was like a big deal. Heavy would have us try our best. I don't know how good we did, but we would attach quail feathers to a fishing line, a fishing pole.
Make flies out of them.
Exactly, and we'd take our bird dogs out in the yard, and we'd cast those lines, see how they'd do, whether they'd point or not, and we spent many an evening just doing that, and like I said, I don't know if we did one lick of good for them, but we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, sure did.
Well, maybe we ought to one day just do a field trial again for the heck of it. Maybe we ought to put one together. Maybe we can, in memory of some of those that have gone before. Miss Ann, I wanted to talk a bit about, we were talking about Melbourne First Baptist Church and tremendous memories of your entire family, Rebecca, Shane, and Jessica. Shane was a couple of years ahead of me. Jessica was a couple of years behind me. Mm-hmm. Rebecca loved those horse shows and was so good at it. How many miles do you think y'all logged doing horse shows during that time? Amazing. And how many trophies and awards you brought home? You probably have a trophy case at home.
There's no telling how many miles we've traveled, because we'd start on 1st of May and it'd end up in September. Mm-hmm. And it was every Saturday night nearly that we'd go to horse shows. Yeah. My kids, the 2 girls, loved horse showing. That was the biggest part of their life. In fact, Jessica would still be a horse showing if she could, and she loved horse shows, and Becky did too. They could really show a horse. Mm-hmm. They could get what it took to win out of them.
Well, of course, the Fairgrounds Arena is named in honor of Miss Rebecca. That's something that's going to be there as long as that facility is. Yeah. I mean, that's how it ought to be for sure. When talking about Rebecca, it's something that you never get over. You just try your best to make some sense of it if you can. But if it is any comfort, you know where she is, and you know we'll see her again. She lived more in those 30 years than most people live in 70 or 80, because I always remember her energy, her positivity she brought to anything, whether it was a Melbourne youth group, whether it was horse showing, whatever she did, Rebecca was all in.
She worked for Izard County in the foster program.
That's right.
And that was one of her passions, was those foster kids. And they called her a name when she was going to court for them, and because she was so into her kids, they called her Hurricane Hickerson when she went to court.
Yeah.
Because if she didn't like what the judge was having to say, she had no problem with telling them that she didn't like that.
Buckle up. She was going to tell it like she saw it. Yeah.
So I will say this. She wanted the very best for every foster child that she ever came in contact with. And I think she's left some good memories with those kids that she worked with.
And now I understand, I believe Jessica is a chaplain?
Yes, she is. She works with the state police. She's gone out on some cases that with them. Now it's a law that when there is an accident, when there's something like that, that there's a fatality, that you have to have a chaplain go with you. And she has been interested in that. She works in a church there. That kind of grew into this, but she's a chaplain now.
Proud of her. I know you are.
We are.
That's for sure. And of course, when you talk about your middle child, Shane, what an impact for the good he's made on this community. Well drilling, and choiring, and running the Ashley House. Pretty much an entrepreneur at this point, isn't he? And a very successful one.
Of our children, he is the one that has kind of surprised both of us. Because, Rebecca was going to be this social worker, and then Jessica came along, and she was going to do whatever she wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, Shane just bloomed and started in with the well drilling business. The houses that he's bought and the Ashley House. And I can tell you ask anybody in Izard County if they know Shane Moser, they're going to tell you, yes, they do.
Hey, want to remind you that Home Folks is brought your way in part by Sonia Hames-Wiles Family Dentistry on the south side of the square in Melbourne. Call for your next appointment. When it comes to all your dental needs, call Sonia, her office, 870-368-6666, 870-368-6666. Mike Watson with State Farm Insurance, offices in Highland and Melbourne, everywhere online at talktomikewatson.com. That's talktomikewatson.com. We're visiting with Ann and L.D. Moser here on this very special edition of Home Folks. Of course, Ann, for many, many, many years, Ann Moser and the Izard County Senior Center, they were synonymous. You would think one, you'd think the other. And many years of service there and a lot of progress there with that program. Like I said, when you think of LD, you think about horses, you think about hunting, and you think about his love for Melbourne Bearkatz sports. You're all in with the Melbourne Bearkatz, both of you. You rarely miss a game, do you?
Well, if there's a home game, we're ready to go. We try to go to all our home games. Up until the last couple of years, we'd go to visit and play. We just love watching our Bearkatz. Of course, 2 years ago, I come down with cancer, and we're doing pretty good with it. We still feel good and feel like getting out and doing some stuff, but of course, our age has knocked a lot of that out of me that I can't stand to do anything anymore, but we love to think about it.
Appreciate all you've done. Not too long ago, y'all were grand marshals of the parade, correct?
He was.
Yeah, you were.
They
Pioneer Day
told me that they wanted me to be a grand marshal
for the Pioneer Day parade.
Pioneer Day parade, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Got to see a lot of good people that we'd seen over the years, and it was a wonderful time. Sure was.
I always, when I get to the tail end of these visits, I think about life advice, things that you've picked up in your years. I'll start with you, Ann. Best life advice you can think of for younger folks.
I would say that one thing that they need to do is to never forget that they are more than they think they are. Just because somebody may have told you that you can't do something doesn't mean that you can't. And I'm going to share this about Rebecca. The main reason that Rebecca went to college was a man made a statement to my brother, kind of like, maybe she wasn't cut out for college. And that motivated her to the point that, it was like, yes, I will.
Imagine
so, you never know what something might motivate you, or also it might make you not feel good about yourself. So I think my best advice would be, don't be afraid to dream.
Sure.
Don't be afraid to achieve. If you do that, and you take God along with you, then you're going to be okay.
Going to be just fine, yeah. LD, what can you think of? Your best advice from a life well lived to younger folks?
Listen to your listen to your ancestors. That's the best advice I could give to kids that's growing up. Because when I was a kid, we'd walk downtown and sit on a square with those old people. I've sat many hours and listened to those people talk. I didn't get into it too much, but I just enjoyed listening to them. And they've impacted my life, no telling how much, Tom. It's just been a wonderful experience for me to live where I could listen to old folks and live with God. Put God in your life if He's not, because He'll lead you in the right direction.
Well said, both of you. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure catching up.
We've had a big time. We love it.
Appreciate you. Yeah. Ann and L.D. Moser, our very special guest here on Home Folks. Once again, if you like what you hear here on these visits, we encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Once again, subscribe. It's absolutely free of charge. Ken Loggins Online. And also don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Ken Loggins Online, as well on Facebook. For Ann and L.D. Moser, I'm Ken Loggins. Till next time, till our next visit on Home Folks, take care.